Welcome everyone to our community conversations at Cooley Law School. This is a program that we hold periodically where we invite members of the community to discuss important legal topics of the day. And today we are talking about access to courts equals access to justice. And our guest speaker is Clerk of Court and Comptroller for Hillsborough County, Cindy Stuart. I'd like to make one note. Our next community conversation is on October 28th at 5 to 6 p.m. It is a wrongful conviction panel. So if you'd like to sign up to attend that community conversation, there will be a link in the chat. And we look forward to seeing you there. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Ms. Stuart. I first came across Ms. Stuart because of a magazine article she wrote for the Hillsborough County Bar Association. And I'm going to share that in the chat. I'm the editor of that magazine this year, and so that means I get to read all the articles before they get published. And she wrote a great article about updating the technology in the Clerk of Court's offices because the clerk handles so many public records. And for many individuals interacting with the court, the Clerk of Court is their first point of contact. So it's really important that individuals, whether they're represented or pro se, are able to access these records in order to properly take care of their legal obligations. So Ms. Stewart was sharing with us earlier that she is brand new to this role. She's been in this role 8 months. She was elected to the Hillsborough County Clerk of Court and Comptroller position in September 2020 and was sworn in on January 5th, 2021. Before she was voted in as the clerk, she was elected to the Hillsborough County School Board for 2 consecutive 4-year terms. She's a Tampa native and a graduate of Lido High School, where she began her advocacy for family and students, public education, and community-wide equity projects through her service on the Parent-Teacher Association, through extensive volunteerism, and her public service as an elected official. While she was on the school board, she chaired the school board's transportation committee, and she was also on the Hillsborough Metropolitan Planning Organization that was directly responsible for making sure federal and state dollars spent on existing and future transportation projects and programs were based on a continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive transportation planning process that increased safety efforts for communities to schools. She also initiated the creation of Feeding Minds and Nourishing Communities, which are school-based food pantries in partnership with Feeding Tampa Bay. She has extensive volunteerism all throughout the Tampa Bay community, and she interacts directly with firms and firms on state and federal legislative initiatives. Since taking office as the clerk and comptroller, she brought a new initiative with her and promised to spend specific days a month to work side by side with her clerk of court staff members, and she calls these days clerk work days, and is committed to spending time inside every division so she can work and learn alongside her employees and better meet the needs of the public. She's committed to using new technology and finding ways to make things easier on all who utilize the clerk's office, which is an overriding necessity for her. Ms. Stewart has an ability to work across the aisle, working in a nonpartisan way for the best of the people as demonstrated in her many years of community-centered work. And the new organization-wide tagline, "Get to Yes," is just the beginning of the positive effect that she will have as Clerk of Court and Comptroller for Hillsborough County. So before Ms. Stewart gives her formal presentation, we do have a 2-minute video that I will share with you now.
When I think about the United States Constitution, I immediately think about a balance of power. I think about how our historic leaders developed a system that provided a sense of direction, a set of standard operating parameters that establishes a structure of power, and safeguards that ensure that no one is above the law. It means that the executive branch, the legislative branch, which is made up of voter voices, and the judicial branch, made up of the Supreme Court, all retain the appropriate authority to ensure our freedoms are secured and the ideals that the voters agree upon are upheld. The Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments, guarantee our personal freedoms and rights and provide clear limitations on the government's power. of weeks ago, I acknowledged Women's Equality Day, the day that commemorates the passage of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution granting women the right to vote. This is especially important to me as a seasoned elected official whose daughters have supported my campaign since they were in elementary school. I am most proud that my daughters and other people's children see and believe that they have opportunities like I had as a school board member and as the Clerk of Court and Comptroller, or one of the 7 countywide elected constitutional officers. While working with this school district, I was highly protective of the freedom of expression and freedom of speech for children and families. I recognize that we are a community of diverse people and should not sanction one thought over another, but guarantee as much as possible a safe, equitable learning environment for all students in grades kindergarten through 12. I recognize the need to develop an equity policy that includes gender identity. I strongly encourage the notion that a student should be able to identify with the preferred name during the school day and presented on non-government documents where appropriate, including with their name is being read at graduation where transcripts may note a different name. The U.S. Constitution supports the freedom of an individual or a community to articulate their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, or legal sanction.
Okay, so those of you who know me well know access to justice is near and dear to my heart, especially because I've done a lot of practicing law with pro se individuals, and it helps everyone, the litigants and the lawyers, when access to the courts is made easier. And also, although the video referenced the US Constitution, the Florida Constitution actually guarantees access to the courts to individuals within Florida. And the Clerk of Court is the face of that guarantee. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Cindy Stuart, Clerk and Comptroller of Hillsborough County. Cindy.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I appreciate it. Just a little more background. I have 3 children who are proud Hillsborough County Public School graduates. And one is a college grad, one is about to be a grad, and one is just starting. So definitely have our work cut out for us in the mindset of keeping children engaged and the availability for them to be in class and do what they need to do to get a full-fledged paying job and be committed and working citizens in this community. So I did serve for 8 years on the school board. So this, and when I took that role, I'm not a teacher. I don't have a college, I have a college education, but not anything in education. I made the mistake once of saying to a dear friend of mine, there was a school board member talking, and I said, I could do that job. And she said, you what? And all of a sudden I had my name on a ballot, and there was election stuff happening and campaigns running. And so be careful who you say that to. People who say they're your friends then turn you into an elected official very easily. And then when this opportunity arose, had been 8 years on the school board. There's always work to do, and I could have probably stayed there forever and been very happy there. But Miss Frank was retiring. Pat Frank was a 16-year clerk here in Hillsborough County. Prior to that, she was, and I don't have the order down right, and I need to get it down right because we're about to dedicate the courthouse to her. But she was a county commissioner, a school board member. She served in the Senate and in the House, and then she came home and served as the clerk of court. So a true trailblazer. She was also one of the first women ever to be allowed into the College of Law where she ended up studying. So very, very much a trailblazer. So I follow a long line of a woman who really has taken things to the next level in this office. But she decided to retire, and I had gone to her and said, look, I'm considering running for this office. I know nothing about your office. She said, don't worry about it. There's a great staff here. Just get yourself elected. That's the biggest hurdle. She said, once you get here, I'm confident that you'll be able to master this job. But I will tell you, I have been drinking from a fire hose since last August, since the election. There are so many things that happen out of this office. The court side of the house is 2/3 of it. The other side of the house is all of the work that we do for the county commission. whether it's payroll or whether it's tracking all of their finances and their investments, whether it's auditing different departments. We manage their portfolio of investments. So my CFO on this side of the house has a massive job. And then we also do payroll for many of the other constitutional offices. We keep track of every single vote that they take, every piece of paper that is passed across their dais, and including all of the other boards that they have. So their land use board, tax deeds, the VAB board, all of those things that happen on the county side of the house are also our responsibility. We're essentially the shareholder, the record keeper and holder of every single record that happens within this community, outside of your driver's license and your property taxes and your property appraisals. They keep those records, but I keep every other record. So our record storage on that side of the house is massive. As you can imagine right now with the growth in Hillsborough County, that piece of our business is extremely busy with the amount of mortgages and tax filings and tax deeds that are being filed right now because of home sales. So we are a very, very busy office. But on the court side of the house, you can go to the next slide, Jocelyn. I did come in. One of the things that I adopted early on that I found very useful in my service as a school board member is this notion of getting to yes. I have been on both sides of many issues where when someone, the first answer they give you is no, you know, it just kind of makes you think, wow, are people not interested in helping? And the answer might not be yes right this moment. It might not be yes tomorrow, but eventually at some point we can get to yes within the confines of the law. I always put that stipulation in there because there are certain things that constrain us by law, but we're going to do our best in my office to get you to the best customer service and getting you the help and the information that you need to do what you have to do within our offices. We recently had a 2-day retreat. When I joined the office in January, I brought some new staff members with me, and there were some people who have been here very, very long term. I've got 30-year employees that sit at my executive level. So we decided to go into retreat with an outside firm and bring everyone to the table so that we could collaborate and talk about how we reimagine some of the things that we do in this office. If you want to go to the next slide, Jocelyn, one of the things that came out of that is a new mission vision statement. And this probably hadn't been updated in 15 years. So it really talks very much about, and we just started with words and how important the words were and how relatable the words were to every single constituent who may or may read this statement. So talking about your financial assets, but not just your assets, but your dollars, talking about equity, transparency, and independence, talking about the customer service, the customer, and safeguarding your records are all very, very important things to our office. So you want to go to the next slide, Jocelyn? The first 120 days, I would say actually the first 6 months have been, like I said, we're drinking from a fire hose. We are next week dedicating the old courthouse to Miss Pat Frank. There will be a ceremony here in front of the courthouse at 10 a.m. on Thursday. We have introduced clerk work days where I spend 3 or 4 hours once a month sitting next to, standing with, going into a courtroom with my clerks and hearing from them, talking to them, and talking to the other parties that are in those environments about what the challenges are, what's going well, what really needs improvement, what are their day-to-day functions, and learning from them exactly what it is that's happening in our offices. We've launched a fraud alert website, which has never been done in this office. We have launched also, we're about to reopen some of our satellite offices, which have been closed since the pandemic. So our Brandon office, we're reopening in January. We have continued to do in-person services and maintain normal business hours throughout the pandemic. We recently, we've resumed in-person jury selection and criminal trials. We're one of the few jurisdictions, the few circuits that has remained with in-person juries. We don't do jury service the way we used to. It's not all on Monday anymore. We have the chief judge and I worked out a deal that we would do jury selection 4 days a week. It took a little bit of arm pulling to get the judges to agree that we weren't all going to pick juries on Mondays. So now jurors come in Monday through Thursday, and the judges have a very strict schedule in which they maintain to pick their juries on specific days. For us, we're able to manage the people flow of in and out much better. It allows us to social distance people. It's better for the downtown area that we don't have 500 people coming in on a Monday. And it allows us to space things out a little bit more. And it also, if you've been in the courthouse, there's one small cafe that was closed for quite some time. And across the street, there's a Subway. There's not a whole lot of places to get a bite to eat down in that area, and parking is expensive. So it's given us an opportunity to really rethink how we do jury service. We have also run so far, our customer service and our call center people are working remotely. Some of that is out of necessity in that we have some construction going on down in our customer service area, so we've had to relocate them. But they would love to stay at home. They enjoy working from home, which most of you will probably encounter. This is a huge issue in the recruitment and retention of employees right now. Everybody wants to work from home, and trying to find a balance for how that looks, how you monitor, how you get to know your employees is a challenge. But I will tell you, we're struggling to hire people if we say you've got to come into the office 2 or 3 days a week. It's really become a new normal for the workforce to work from home. We recently held our Operation Greenlight, which we partner with the state's attorney's office and the public defender to allow people who have suspended licenses to come into a courtroom with a judge. Everything was done via Zoom this year, but the judge at that point provided that provided the individual does not have any child support or any criminal charges pending, the judge can reduce fines and fees on an individual to virtually nothing. So the idea is to help people who are the most economically challenged get back on their feet and get a driver's license so they can get back and forth to work and to taking children back and forth to school and childcare. Very successful program. We don't make any money on this. In fact, we lose money, but it's about what we're doing for the community and how we give back. So if you want to go to the next slide, Jocelyn. I do, like I said, clerk work days. We have instituted some new policies since I've joined the office, some things that really were happening that they just weren't taking advantage of the opportunity to recognize them. I've hired someone to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work in my office and community work. One of the first things we're rolling out next week is a bilingual incentive policy, whereby anyone who is bilingual speaking and willing will be incentivized to do that on an annual basis. I think the sheriff's office is the only other office that actually has a bilingual incentive policy that they actually recognize and lean on those individuals for bilingual translation. We have to take notice that 50+ of this community speaks a different language. And so when they come into my office and they need assistance and they need something from the courts, we have to be able to meet them where they are. So very big initiative for us to lift bilingual. I've recently hired a new HR person, and I just hired a new communications person. So I'm really excited about that. We have started, starting in January and February, staff give back days and community volunteer opportunities. So I am very much about this community, and I give back tremendously and love doing that and feel that everyone should do that. So I'm putting the opportunity in front of my employees to participate. We've already held 2 clerk days at Feeding Tampa Bay, and my employees went out and we packed boxes that will be delivered out into the community. It was a Tuesday and a Thursday night. We're there for about 3 hours each night. We have held supply drives for the Education Foundation for school supplies. We are participating this month in a Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so there's activities going on for that. But really engaging them around what is happening in our community and how we can give back. We've been able to, because of funding advantages this year, I've been able to incentivize my employees and retain. We just recently did some surveying around COVID. We have 82% of our employees are vaccinated. So really excited about those numbers and making sure that we have a healthy workspace and that our employees are being kept safe. We do have a very robust telework policy. But I also have to recognize that I have people on the court side of the house that it is impossible for them to work from home. So we will look at how we do things a little bit differently. We're still managing through retention and hiring around those policies, and how do I make sure that we are also rewarding the people who don't have that opportunity. If you're a customer service rep down in the courthouse, in the Edgecombe Courthouse, that's not an opportunity for you to work from home. If you are a clerk and you work in a courtroom, there's really not an opportunity for you to work from home. You can probably work via Zoom, but you have to be in the courthouse to access the documents and the information that you need. And it's really difficult to be a clerk working with a JA and a judge and not be right there in the same room. We still have a lot of masking going on in our courthouse, but things that there's just some things that are impossible for us to have people working from home. Then I have other divisions. My finance division and my IT division have very, very heavily work from home type employees. And so, my directors and my chiefs would tell you some of them are more productive working from home. So some of them need that space and time. Again, like I said, we had a 2-day strategic planning event. We have a new strategic plan that we've rolled out to our employees that it has many pillars, but that'll be a 2-year process of rolling out some changes that we're going to make. A lot of them are around efficiencies and internal efficiencies within the work area. We've had a number of opportunities to spend time with and talk to our employees. We did an employee survey as soon as I got here. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with those folks after the survey was released and the findings were released, and talk to them a little bit deeper about the things that need to change in this office and the things that are have been stagnant for a while. If you can imagine, again, we do everything on the court side of the house, from records to, I was telling a group this morning from Leadership Hillsborough that we do everything from birth to death. So from the time you're born until the time you pass on, all of the records that happen in your life, with the exception of your driver's license, are held by my office. So any divorce filings, any sort of issues you may get into with the law, any tickets or traffic violations that you get, anytime you sell or buy a house, if there's an eviction that happens, all of those things, if you get married, all of those things come through my office and are kept as records. And they're all statutorily driven on how long I keep them or when I can or cannot destroy them. And we're very cognizant of both our keeping, our efficiency to keep, our ability to keep, and our ability to share. So I share with many organizations a lot of that information, specifically the Public Defender's Office and the State's Attorney's Office and the Sheriff. There's a great working relationship with those electeds across this community, which in Hillsborough County is very, very unique. As I travel through the state and hear my fellow colleagues talk about their relationship with the chief judge or their relationship with their sheriff or their public defender, it's very interesting to hear that some of those relationships are very broken. And I can't imagine how you get work done as the clerk and controlling everything that we control in a courthouse our size, with 2 courthouses in Hillsborough County, one in Plant City and one here in downtown Tampa, and not have a good relationship with your administrative judge. It's just, we are very fortunate to have the bench that we have here. We recently, we are getting 6 new judges in Hillsborough County. If you're not aware, we're actually getting 7. One is a replacement. Joelle Ober retired, and her replacement is now here. And then we have 3 that have been appointed, and the governor will appoint 3 more, I think, within the next 2 to 3 weeks. They will all be commissioned to start on November 1st. So for us, that's great news. The backlog of cases that are sitting in Hillsborough County will now be addressed. They're going to create 3 new divisions. And we're not sure where the chief judge is going to put the other 2 judges, but you'll see that lift start to change a little bit on backlog of cases. But for our office, that means staffing those courtrooms. So training and getting courtroom clerks up to speed on how and what the judges are going to need is a challenge. We're already short-staffed. COVID has hit our offices pretty hard. And the most unfortunate piece of that is that the courthouse and my employees on that side they're budgeted and managed by how much we collect fees and fines. So as we collect fees and fines, that's what actually runs your courthouse. Jurisdictionally, you're only allowed to collect so much in fees and fines, and then you give what's an overage back to the state. But it's really a broken model to think that the fees and fines that I collect on a daily, monthly, annual basis will fund what is actually happening in Hillsborough County. A large majority of fees and fines are not collected. Those people who owe those dollars either don't have the funding or they're sitting in a prison. So it's very difficult for us to manage where 2/3 of your employees are in a system that very much relies on fees and fines through courts and through traffic to maintain, a viable budget. And I think we saw a lot of that with COVID because we saw that, hold on, I have to shut off. My computer says it's about to restart itself. I have to make sure it doesn't do that. We saw that a lot with COVID where there were not, there was no one on the road, so there were no traffic tickets being written. Court was not happening like it normally did, and judges and the sheriff's office were very sympathetic to this time where people were stuck at home and they were not working and losing their jobs. So we were not imposing fees and fines. We were not evicting people. So how we switch and change that system is a monumental task, but it is certainly something that I believe the legislator has got to consider. So that we can maintain equal access and a right for every person to have their day in court if they choose to have it. But it is definitely a challenge. We've spent a lot of time working on technology and figuring out how we can continue to bring the services that are necessary to the constituent. We have a very, very robust website that allows people to get online and find a lot of the documents that they need and print them out in the comfort of their home or at their kitchen table. We also have spent a lot of energy and time and effort in monetizing the fact that our people can work at home. So prior to my arrival, every employee in the clerk's office has a laptop and a docking station. And when COVID happened, they could literally pick up their laptop and go home and connect and continue to work. So we're very fortunate in that. But I also have a lot of internal efficiencies that need to be addressed in the way of, I think I probably have a laundry list of projects that will address efficiencies that would last probably 2 or 3 decades. The question is finding the money to do those projects. And it's not even just the money. I can third-party contract the work, but the brain power of people working on these projects that know what it is need to happen is where we really fall short. I have people who do one job and then they're pulled off to work on a project because we need their brain power to make sure the project is going to go well. So we are working diligently on stuff like that. I also brought on, when I came to this office, a government relations person who works diligently with a lobbying firm in Tallahassee to make sure that The legislation that is getting written by Tallahassee lawmakers does not negatively impact our office. Some of the things we're working on this year are our domestic violence injunctions in this community they're plenty, and we work very closely with the Spring and with the Crisis Center to make sure that as many of those injunctions that get filed actually get passed before a judge and a summons goes out. We're working on trying to reduce the amount of paper in that area so that a domestic violence victim can actually file an injunction from the comfort of their home, have it notarized, and actually get the information back to them on their cell phone. All new projects that have been implemented since I arrived, we will continue to work with the Spring to bring advocates into that space. We are legally restricted on how much we can help a victim, but I can certainly allow advocates to come into, whether it's through a computer screen or actually into the space, to walk a victim through how to fill out those documents. They're have to remember the personal aspect, the emotional aspect of what's happening. They probably have been traumatized. They may have children with them, and it's a very emotional situation. And that is what they tend to put on the DV injunction paperwork, and it becomes emotional. And unfortunately, sometimes a judge won't rule when he only sees the emotional, and he really wants to see the physical or the tactical things that have happened in a case. But an advocate can help walk a victim through that, where my office is very restricted on what they can and cannot do. We've spent a lot of time talking about what it looks like for us to collaborate with other agencies. We will be launching a project whereby the tax collector's office will start taking payments for overdue fees and fines through her office and then transfer to my office. What happens now is if you come in to get your driver's license, she's on the 14th floor, and you go up to the 14th floor only to be told, hey, by the way, you owe the clerk, $100, but you can't pay it through me. You have to now go back downstairs, walk 3 blocks this way, pay your fee and fine, and then come back to me. And so by the time they get back, by the time they get to meet my customer service people, they aren't happy. And then by the time they then get back to, the tax collector's office to actually get their driver's license, they're even unhappier. So we're trying to find ways that we can partner together to make that experience a little more seamless. It's not difficult work, but it's certainly, again, it's about the customer and making sure that we're meeting them where their needs are. So we'll continue to do work like that. Like I said, we have a huge data share project we're about to launch with the sheriff's office, the public defender, and the state's attorney. We share a lot of information, and for those of you who are not aware, one human error in my office can mean that a victim is exposed. It can mean that a victim is put in danger. It can mean that someone gets released from prison that is not supposed to be released. It can mean that someone goes to prison and is picked up that shouldn't be picked up. It can mean that bad information is transferred to a court case that shouldn't be there. It can mean that the public defender doesn't get the appropriate documents that she needs to prosecute a case or to defend a case. So very much we try to be very cautious of the transparency and the integrity of the work and the individual that we're dealing with, but we also know that we are very much an independent agency. I have to be able to work across the board with all of these different offices to provide the information that's necessary and needed. We work very closely with real estate agencies, mortgage brokers, people who are filing documents in our office. We perform marriage ceremonies. We take pro se litigant family law down in our customer service area. So, and if you can imagine for a clerk, taking all those documents and knowing how to process all of them, the cross training that happens in our customer service areas is massive. So when you start learning 2 or 3 different types of documents. And even I've seen 10 and 15 year employees still be working to try and learn as much as they can about the inner workings of the office and the documents that they can process. got a handful of them down there that can process everything, and it's amazing to watch them process. But they take evictions, they take child support payments. My goal is to make sure that any office of ours that you walk into, you can manage any of the things that you need to in one location. I'm also working very diligently. If you ever walk into the courthouse, you know that it's very intimidating to walk into the courthouse. You are like, it's like walking into TSA. You first get checked by security, and then from there, it's very difficult sometimes to maneuver where you're supposed to be going and how you're supposed to, and it's daunting. Most people who come into the courthouse, it's not usually a good experience. It's not a reason. You don't go to the courthouse to go for a tour, or get, have a cup of coffee. It's usually an experience that is emotional. It's probably going to cost you some money, and it's not usually anything that's easy to navigate. So we're doing our best to focus on customer service and figure out how we make the experience easier and better for the customer that we're dealing with. I did want to give you some stats too. I didn't put them on. The legislator was good to us last year. We did get passed Senate Bill 838, which allowed clerks across the state to keep a 16% reserve for events exactly like COVID. In the year of COVID, a lot of clerks had to go to their county commissions to ask for additional dollars to keep the courthouses open because we weren't collecting fees and fines. We're very fortunate in Hillsborough County. We have a great working relationship with our county commission. They completely understand the necessity of keeping the courts open and running. I do have an internship program that we're launching this year. I had a student come to me in early summer last year and said, hey, I want to help you develop an internship program for your upcoming year as part of my work as a UF student. So she did all the work. We're super excited to be able to also say that they will be paid internships. So I'm really grateful for the work of my staff to bring that forward. So we will have anywhere from 10 to 15 interns in our offices this coming summer. I'm really excited. It's a great recruiting tool for us because you can be a CPA, you can be an IT person, or you can have no experience whatsoever and come in and intern in this office. You can be a law student and decide. I have several law students who are lawyers who are actually clerks in my office. So it's very interesting how people find their way to the clerk's office and to our family. And we work real closely to try and make sure that we continue to retain those people. Our office is mandated by about 900 plus statutory items that direct how and what we do. And every year they seem to find more things that they think we need to do either better, differently, or more of. So we always follow legislation very closely in this office, whether it's, how we're charging fees and fines to people, what documents have to be redacted or not redacted, what documents are available to the public or not available to the public, and how and what we retain and what we destroy are all topics of things that usually come up in legislative priorities. I will tell you one of the big priorities that we're going to be dealing with is how and when you reinstate a driver's license. It's being done differently across the entire state. In Hillsborough County, we do not put you on payment plans. We actually just ask you to come back and pay us because payment plans actually cost the driver's license holder more dollars. It costs them money to join the payment plan. It costs them money to a fee to be on the payment plan. So we do things a little bit differently here, but it's a big issue. Suspension of driver's license is a big issue across the state that's probably going to become something that is legislatively driven, I expect, for next year. We pay quite a few bills out of our offices. We pay all of the bills for the Supervisor of Elections office and all of their payroll. We of course pay all of the payroll for our employees and a lot of the county employees. So when they do things like COVID incentives, my payroll team kind of goes crazy because they have to manage all of that. We have an extremely diverse workforce as well. 67% of our workforce has been in the clerk's office more than 5 years. And we also mirror the county pretty much on our diversity. So with 40% of our employees being white and the county 47%. African American, we're at 30%. The county is at about 18%. And on down the line. So we are trying as much as we can to mirror the community in which we serve. It's a big issue for us. Like I said, we put in place a small business encouragement and minority business policy. As soon as I got here, they were not tracking who they were actually doing business with. We found at first run, we were doing business on contract, both state and local level. 50% of our vendors are minority business owned, which is great numbers, but I expect that those numbers will climb as we continue to monitor and seek out minority businesses to do business with. A lot of our contracts are IT contracts for software projects that we work on. As you can imagine, cybersecurity is a huge issue in our office, and making sure that we have very strict lockdowns on what you can and can't do out of our office. A lot of testing for phishing, a lot of testing for hacking, a lot of it too. Every single employee in this place has a computer, so monitoring what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's funny. It's a big brother to another level. My computer and router were not working at home the other day, and I just didn't really think anything of it. I just went about my business, and the next day I got a phone call. They're like, "Hey, Cindy, it looks like you're da 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 da," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it wasn't working." I didn't even, but you didn't report it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I just moved on." I just probably had to come into the office. So they monitor very closely the things that are happening with our 650 employees and what they're doing on their computers and how they're doing it. So that's all I have. I can move into questions and comments. Again, technology is a huge issue for our office. We'll continue to put large amounts of dollars into technology and upgrading and making things more friendly for the customer out there. But I'll move into questions if you want to now, Jocelyn.
Oh, sure. Did you want me to show any other slides? Did you have from the community?
Yeah, I kind of moved through them pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to go.
I talked about all that stuff. I just didn't tell you to move the slide. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. So we're at Q&A, and then I did mention in the chat, if you have questions, to put it there. One person did say you try to access the HCBA article. So that's like if you click on the link, you go to page 14. That is where you'll find the article. And that article is titled.
We write for that organization every month. We have a page there. So we're constantly looking for topics to put out that are relevant to the HCBA, but also relevant to any other reader that might pick up that magazine at first blush and want to read it. I know the state's attorney writes regularly for them as well. So it's a great magazine.
Yes, and that particular article is about chipping away at a mountain of paper and dealing with the backlog you were referencing and updating the technology. So if you're interested in getting more information about that, it's a really short article, but it talks about the urgency for it. We do have a couple of students here who are working on public records with Hillsborough County for some work they're doing for their externship. We had two questions. In your mission statement, you said, equity, transparency, and independence. And someone asked why independence versus like a word like integrity, which is the word usually used in like the Air Force or in other government contracting and procurement work. I guess when you all decided on the vision and mission statements can be tricky, trying to get those words together.
I'm trying to remember why we changed. It used to be integrity, and we changed to independence. And I'm not sure if I remember. Look. These people wordsmith this thing so much, and I wanted 4 words, and this is where we landed. So I got outvoted. So I don't remember why we went with independence. Again, we started throwing a lot of words up on the wall and talking about the work of this office, which spans so many different facets, and really how is it relatable to the everyday customer. I'm not sure why they landed on independence instead of integrity.
Independent voice.
Yeah, I think it was definitely an independent voice, I think, but I'm not sure. And this is Lori, who I know you were meeting and talking to a lot, Jocelyn. She's my special projects coordinator.
Yes, thank you again, Lori, for putting us in contact. I met her at Tampa Bay Chamber, and we just started chatting. I said, they should come speak to our students. And she said, absolutely. And so this is, then I saw your article and said, we definitely have to make this happen. So thank you for staying with it. We did have another question. So even though you told us kind of what initially inspired you to run for clerk of court, one student asked, well, what made you actually run, right? Your friend suggested it, but then your name is on the ballot. Now you're doing the whole campaign. What would you say inspired you to run for that office?
So it's a funny story, actually. So my first run for school board, I was your PTA mom. I was president of PTA. I was doing everything I could to make sure that my children were getting the best education possible. You know, I was running around to school with 2 small children and a baby on my hip, you know, doing all this stuff. And I went to a school board event and I saw my representative at the time, and I was like, okay, look. And a friend of mine was with me, and I said I could do that. And I launched a campaign for school board. It was a 2-year campaign. I knew we would not be able to probably raise a lot of money, and we had to be completely grassroots. This role, and I won my second election pretty easily. I had an opponent, but really not anyone of any name or recognition, and really didn't raise a whole lot of money. And I'm not the big money candidate. I'm truly, I will tell you, money does not win campaigns. There are a lot of other ways to win campaigns. This is probably the most money I've raised in a campaign, which was $65,000. And my opponent raised close to $1 million. So it's not about the money. This particular campaign, I had actually filed to run for school board again. The pandemic had hit. My son was doing school from home at the time. My daughter graduated from Florida State during that time. She came home to live with me. And like I said, I kind of toyed with the idea of, you know, I knew Miss Frank was retiring, and I kind of thought about it. And then I had a lot of personal stuff going on, and we were in the middle of COVID, and everyone was kind of scratching their head. How in the world is anyone going to run a campaign when you can't even step outside your front door? But my daughter, actually, who is a political science graduate from Florida State, was home with me, and we were talking about it, and she just kind of said, Mom, what are you doing? Like, why would you not challenge yourself to take on a larger, bigger office? I mean, you've been doing school board for 8 years. You do that in your sleep now. She said, and she was right. She's like, what do you have to lose? And at that point, I didn't have anything to lose. I mean, the school board is, it's a thankless job, but someone has to do it. And this is a challenge for me. It's a higher level office. I knew that it's a countywide elected seat versus I had run in a seat that was very much a district, so a much larger population for voting. So she kind of pushed me in that direction, and I made a couple of phone calls, including calling the current clerk, and she said, absolutely, I'll support you 100%. You're going to be great at this. And I told her, I said, I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your endorsement. I'm going to need your contacts, and I'm going to need you walking hand in hand with me this walk of why you think I should be in this office next. So I couldn't have done it without her. There's no way I would have won, I don't think, if I didn't have her endorsement. But I don't shy away from challenges. I very much have been in that world of being challenged for quite some time, growing up in a household where I'm the only one in my family to go to college, let alone graduate from college. I'm the oldest of 3, so constantly dragging the other 2 with me as a leader of my family, really pushing myself to be an elected official and to maintain common sense government, and really just do the work of the people and not get so caught up in the politics. So that's the long-winded answer of why. It had really nothing to do with my interest in the actual court system or the work, but it's about serving the people. I started that way in my campaign. I started spending hours and hours with some staff members from here, from this office, trying to learn everything I could. And I finally said, time out. Tell me what I need to know to win this election, and we'll get to that later. And really, they've stood by me and helped me learn. Anytime I have a question, or anytime I need information, they're right there standing next to me, providing the information. And again, I have some 30-year employees around me and my executive team that have way more knowledge. My chief of courts has been here for 27 years. So to know anything about that court system, Doug Backey is your guy. It is not Cindy Stuart, and Cindy Stuart calls Doug Backey and says, what is happening? How do we manage this? What's going on? What can we do better or differently? Everyone's been very open and welcoming to change and to making things better for our constituents, and to making things easier on the other partners that we are currently and constantly engaged with. So.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. Oh, I'm sorry. Was someone else speaking? No? Okay, one more question, because it is 2:56, so we have about 4 minutes left, and we do want to respect everyone's time. I did mention there are a couple of students working on some research projects through public records. So one of them asked, is there a way to get kind of, I guess, a dictionary or a list of legal terms used on the clerk's website? And also, is there a video or tutorial to help you navigate the website if you're getting enormous amount of public records?
So legal terms, repeat that question for me, Jocelyn.
Is there a list to help understand the legal terms used by the clerk's website?
I will find out and get that to you.
Okay, because like there's fees and then there's fines, right?
Because they use more acronyms, and I am a techie. I have an IT background, but they use more acronyms in this business than I've ever seen in my life. In fact, one of my newer employees said, "Could we stop with the acronyms at the executive meeting?" Because she had no idea by the end what we were talking about. It is, DV, Ron, it's CJS, right. They go on and on with the acronyms. So a list of the legal terms used on the website. And what was the other question?
Is there a video or tutorial to help someone navigating the website? So I know there may be some training available for individuals. Some information about that would be helpful for those who are like these students, helping with fines and fees projects. They need the help, like you said, yet they have to identify whether there's outstanding criminal cases or other things before they can
schedule that stuff for you. There is court training available for legal assistants and new attorneys. There are also quite a few similar things that we offer in conjunction with the Bar Association. Like most recently, I know our association, the Florida Clerks and Comptrollers of Florida, along with the Bar Association, offered training for attorneys on the Supreme Court ruling on 2.420, which is not about redaction, but about access to public records. So they ordered a joint, they had a joint session to train on that. So there is some stuff out there that we can get to you. And Lori is telling me she will set that up for you guys. As far as the legal terms on the website, I can find out. Our website person is pretty savvy, and I can find out if she's got something out there. And if not, I'm sure she'd love to put a project together and put some of the legal terms in a glossary for you to access.
Okay, that's great. So I don't know, Terry, if you want to make any last remarks, or Ms. Stewart, if there's anything you'd like to say to end today's program.
I did drop in the link if anyone wanted to come to the October 28th wrongful conviction panel discussion. That's available, and the link is right in the chat.
And because today's program was recorded, it will be added to the Community Conversations playlist on WMU Cooley Law School's YouTube page. And we're going to make that available to Ms. Stewart as well. So if Ms. Stewart, if you don't have anything to add, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was great meeting you all. I look forward to seeing you in the courthouse when you finish law school. Please don't hesitate to contact my office if you need anything.
Excellent. Now make sure the students know about the internships coming up this summer so they can look into it. And we thank you so much, and also to you, Lori, for making sure we're able to continue and finish our session today despite some technical difficulties, but that's to be expected in the Zoom era. Thank you everyone for joining us. That's it for our program today.